The city of Oakhaven was a symphony of light and laughter, but for Mary it was a tomb of ice. She hugged her delivery jacket tighter, the fabric dusted with a layer of white that refused to melt. Her phone buzzed one last time before the battery died, a video post from her best friend, Sarah. It showed Sarah and Mary's boyfriend, Marcus, clinking crystal flutes in the apartment Mary paid for. "New year, new us," the caption read. Mary tried to stand, but her legs were lead. The hunger was a dull roar, replaced by the terrifying numbness of stage 2 hypothermia. She looked at the silver wire ring on her finger, the only thing they hadn't managed to pawn. "Is this it?" she whispered to the falling snow. "Is this how I end?" Suddenly, the wind died down. The biting air was blocked by a wall of expensive wool and the scent of sandalwood and rain. Mary looked up. Standing over her was a man who looked like he had been carved from the winter itself. Sharp jaw, eyes like dark glass, and a presence so dominant it seemed to stop the very festivities around them. Choi Hyun-woo didn't look at her with pity. He looked at her with an intensity that burned. He reached into his inner pocket and pulled out a small, crinkled plastic wrapper, a relic from a cheap bakery, faded and old. "12 years ago, you told me not to die because it was almost the new year," he said, his voice a low, melodic rumble. "I kept my promise. Now, I'm here to make sure you keep yours." He extended a gloved hand. Behind him, 3 black sedans slid to a halt, their engines purring like predators. "Get up, Mary. We have an empire to take back, and 2 funerals to plan." The interior of the sedan was a sensory shock. After the biting, oxygen-thin cold of the streets, the car smelled of expensive leather and cedarwood. The heater hummed at a perfect temperature, sending painful but welcome needles of warmth through Mary's frozen limbs. She sat as far away from Choi Hyun-woo as possible, huddled against the door. She watched him through the corner of her eye. He hadn't looked at her since he closed the door. Instead, he was focused on a tablet, his thumb scrolling through digital files with clinical precision. "Why?" Mary's voice was a raspy ghost of its former self. Hyun-woo didn't look up. "Why what, Miss Miles?" "Why me? There are thousands of people in this city. You're him." She gestured vaguely at the tinted windows. Even as a delivery girl, she knew the name Choi. They owned the shipping docks, the high-rises, and the whispers in the dark alleys. You don't just pick up strays. "I don't," he said, finally turning his head. His gaze was heavy, weighing her worth. He reached into his pocket and placed the crinkled red bean bun wrapper on the armrest between them. "I don't collect strays. I settle debts. 12 years ago, I was a runaway from a family that wanted me dead. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. I was bleeding out in an alley behind Mama's bakery when a girl in a school uniform gave her her lunch and her scarf." Mary looked at the wrapper. The logo was for a bakery that had closed years ago. A memory flashed. A boy with a split lip and eyes full of a terrifying, quiet rage, sitting behind a dumpster. She had been 13. She hadn't been afraid of him then. She had just felt sorry for him. I told you it was almost the new year," she whispered, her eyes widening. "And you gave me that," he pointed to the silver wire ring on her finger. "You said it was a lucky charm your mother gave you. You told me as long as I held it, I couldn't disappear." "I took it back before I left that day," Mary remembered, touching the cold metal. "I didn't think you'd even remember my face." "I forgot nothing," Hyun-woo said, his voice dropping an octave. "I've had men looking for you for 3 years. I found you tonight because my shadow tracked your bike to that park. I also know that while I was looking for you to reward you, Marcus Thorne and Sarah Jenkins were looking for you to bleed you dry." At the mention of her ex and her best friend, Mary's grief surged back, hotter than the car's heater. They took everything. My savings, my apartment. They even put the utilities in my name and ran up the bills. I have nothing. Hyun-woo leaned in closer, his shadow falling over her. Correction, you have me, and through me you have the power to make them wish they had never been born. The car pulled into the underground garage of a fortress-like skyscraper. The doors were opened by men in silent black suits. Tonight, you sleep in a bed with silk sheets. Hyun-woo stood up, stepping out of the car. He held out his hand again, not as a suggestion, but as an order. Tomorrow, we sign the papers. You will become my fiancé. You will help me convince my board of directors that I am a settled man ready to take the chairmanship. In return, I will give you Marcus and Sarah on a silver platter. Is it a crime, what you're going to do to them? Hyun-woo's lips curled into a faint, lethal smile. In my world, Mary, the only crime is being weak enough to get caught. Are you ready to stop being weak? Mary reached out. Her small, scarred hand disappeared inside his. Tell me what to do. The penthouse was less of a home and more of a glass cathedral perched above the clouds. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked down on the city, where the New Year's fireworks were now just tiny, silent flickers of light far below. To Mary, the city looked like a toy she had once played with and broken. Hyun-woo led her to a massive desk of polished obsidian. On it sat a single fountain pen and a leather-bound folder. "Wash up first," he said, nodding toward a hallway. "My staff has prepared clothes. We talk when you look like someone who isn't about to vanish into the wind." 40 minutes later, Mary emerged. The hot shower had washed away the grime of the delivery shifts, but it couldn't wash away the hollow ache in her chest. She wore a borrowed silk robe that cost more than her stolen bike. Her skin, a deep, rich mahogany, finally had its glow back, though her eyes remained haunted. Hyun-woo was pouring 2 glasses of dark liquid, not champagne, but tea that smelled of earth and ancient forests. He slid a glass toward her as she sat across from him. "The contract is simple," he began, flipping open the folder. "Duration, 1 year. Your duties: attend all social functions by my side, live in this penthouse, and maintain the image of a woman deeply in love with the most dangerous man in Seoul and this city. In exchange, you receive a monthly allowance of $500,000, a personal security detail, and—" He paused, sliding a second paper across the desk. It wasn't a legal document. It was a dossier. Mary's breath hitched. There were photos of Marcus and Sarah. They were in a nightclub, laughing. Marcus had his arm around Sarah's waist. They were wearing clothes Mary recognized, clothes bought with the money she had saved for her nursing school tuition. "And," Hyun-woo continued, his voice cold, "and I have already purchased the debt on the apartment they are staying in. I own their car notes. I own the company Sarah works for. By next month, I can make them homeless, or I can make them disappear. The choice of their punishment will be yours." Mary stared at the photos. The betrayal felt like a fresh wound. "They think I'm dead," she whispered. "They think I'm just a ghost they got rid of." "Then let's give them a haunting they'll never forget," Hyun-woo said. He pushed the fountain pen toward her. It was heavy, gold-plated, and felt like a weapon in her hand. "The moment you sign this, Mary Miles ceases to exist. You become Mary Choi. You will have to learn how to speak to vipers without blinking. You will have to wear diamonds that feel like shackles. Are you prepared for the price of revenge?" Mary looked at the signature line. Below it was a pre-approval for a $10 million relocation and wardrobe fund. She thought of the cold bench. She thought of Marcus's laugh. She thought of the way her best friend had looked at her with pity while secretly planning to steal her life. She gripped the pen. "They didn't just take my money, Hyun-woo. They took my dignity. I don't just want them poor, I want them to see me and realize that even at my lowest, I was always better than them." With a steady hand, she signed, "Mary Miles," in jagged, shaky script. Hyun-woo watched her, a flicker of something, perhaps approval, crossing his unreadable features. He stood up, walked around the desk, and did something unexpected. He reached out and tucked a stray lock of hair by her ear. His touch was warm, a sharp contrast to his icy reputation. "Welcome to the family, Mary. Rule number 2, never look down. From now on, the only people below you are the ones we choose to step on." He turned to his assistant, who had been standing silently in the shadows. "Call the stylists, cancel her past, and tell the bank to freeze every account associated with Marcus Torn. I want him to realize he's broke before the sun comes up." Mary looked out at the horizon. The first light of the new year was breaking. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of the morning.
The transformation was not just about the clothes, it was about the armor. For 3 days, Mary was subjected to a whirlwind of elite stylists, speech coaches, and skincare specialists. They treated her like a masterpiece in progress. By the 4th day, when she looked in the mirror, she didn't see the girl who carried pizza boxes through the rain. She saw a woman who looked like she breathed fire and wore the sun. She was dressed in a floor-length silk charmeuse gown the color of midnight. A diamond choker, cold and heavy, sat against her throat, Hyun-woo's leash, as she privately called it. "You look acceptable," Hyun-woo said, leaning against the doorframe of her dressing room. He was in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, his presence commanding the space. "Acceptable?" Mary turned, her heels clicking on the marble. "I feel like I'm wearing a museum exhibit." "Good. Power is a performance, Mary. Tonight is the opening night." They were headed to Le Clos, the most exclusive rooftop lounge in the city. It was the exact place Sarah had always dreamed of visiting, the place she had scrolled through on Instagram while Mary worked double shifts. The entrance of Choi Hyun-woo usually silenced a room, but tonight the silence was deafening. Every head turned as he entered with a stunning black woman on his arm. She walked with a grace that hid the fact that her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "There you are," Hyun-woo whispered, his breath warm against her ear as he leaned in, feigning an intimate gesture for the cameras. Mary followed his gaze. Near the bar, wearing a dress that Mary recognized, her dress, the one she had bought for her graduation but never wore, stood Sarah. Beside her was Marcus, looking smug in a suit that still had the dry cleaning tag hidden under the collar. They were laughing, trying to look like they belonged, but they were being ignored by the true elite. "Go," Hyun-woo murmured, releasing her arm. "I'll be right behind you. Let them see the ghost." Mary walked forward. The crowd parted. Sarah was mid-laugh when she saw the hem of a midnight silk gown stop in front of her. She looked up, her glass of cheap sparkling wine trembling. "Mary?" Sarah's voice was a panicked squeak. I thought you were... We thought you left town." Marcus turned, his face turning a sickly shade of gray. "Mary? Baby, listen, we can explain." Mary didn't scream. She didn't slap them. She simply looked at them with a cold, distant curiosity, as if looking at 2 insects on a windshield. "I'm sorry," Mary said, her voice smooth and polished, exactly as the coaches had taught her. "I don't know you. You look like someone who used to deliver my mail." "Mary, stop it," Sarah hissed, stepping forward. "We know it's you. Where did you get that dress? Who did you steal those diamonds from? Security!" A waiter and 2 large guards approached, but they didn't look at Mary. They looked at the man stepping up behind her. "Is there a problem, darling?" Hyun-woo asked, placing a possessive hand on the small of Mary's back. The guards froze. The color drained from Marcus's face entirely. He knew who Choi Hyun-woo was. Everyone did. "Mr. Choi," Marcus stammered, his knees literally shaking. "This woman, she's a fraud. She's a delivery girl. She stole from us." Hyun-woo didn't even look at Marcus. He looked at the manager of the lounge who had come rushing over. It seems some trash drifted up to the rooftop tonight. The woman beside me is my fiancée, Mary Choi. This man is accusing her of theft. I find that offensive." The manager's eyes went wide. "I am so sorry, Mr. Choi. We'll handle it immediately." "Wait!" Sarah screamed as the guards grabbed her arms. "Mary, tell them we're friends." Mary took a slow sip of her drink as Sarah was dragged toward the service elevator. She leaned in close to Marcus, who was being forced to his feet. "Rule number 2, Marcus," Mary whispered, so only he could hear. "Never look down, because from now on, I'm the only thing you'll see when you look up from the gutter." As they were hauled out, the room burst into hushed whispers. Mary felt a strange, hollow victory. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. Hyun-woo leaned down, his eyes scanning her face. "You didn't blink. Well done." "I want to go home," Mary said, her voice suddenly small. "Not yet," Hyun-woo replied, turning her to face the room. "The world needs to see you dance with the devil first."
The morning after the gala, the city's tabloids were ablaze. The headline on the Oak Haven Daily read, "The Ice King's Hitting Queen. Who is Mary Choi?" Mary sat in the sun-drenched breakfast nook of the penthouse, watching the digital numbers of her bank account. Marcus and Sarah had been blacklisted from every major establishment in the district overnight. Their credit cards were being declined at grocery stores, their social media accounts were being flooded with scammer allegations leaked by Hyun-woo's PR team. "You're staring at the fire you started," Hyun-woo said, stepping into the room. He was dressed in a casual black turtleneck, looking less like a mobster and more like a dark academic. "It's not enough," Mary said, her eyes cold. "They're suffering, but they're still together. They still have each other to lean on." Hyun-woo sat across from her. "Snakes only lean on each other until the heat gets too high. Then they eat each other to survive. Watch." 2 hours later, Mary's burner phone, the one Marcus still had the number for, buzzed. "Mary, please, we need to talk. I'm at the old park, the bench where we met. Sarah is crazy, Mary. She forced me to take the money. I've been looking for you. I'm in danger. Please, just 5 minutes." Mary felt a surge of disgust so potent it made her nauseous. "He's trying to flip," she whispered to Hyun-woo, who was listening to the call via a localized tap. "He thinks you're still the soft girl who gave her lunch to a stranger," Hyun-woo said, his jaw tightening. "He thinks he can charm his way back into your bank account. Do you want to end this?" "I want to see him crawl," Mary replied. The park was gray and desolate. The snow from New Year's Eve now turned into a dirty slush. Marcus stood by the bench, looking disheveled. Gone was the smug man in the stolen suit. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in 48 hours. When a black armored SUV pulled up and Mary stepped out, flanked by 2 massive security guards, Marcus ran forward. "Mary, baby!" He tried to reach for her, but a guard's hand hit his chest like a brick wall. "Mary, thank God. That man, that Choi guy, he's dangerous. He's using you. I did what I did to protect you. I took the money so we could run away together. But Sarah, she threatened to tell the police I was the one who scammed your boss." Mary looked at him, her expression as unreadable as Hyun-woo's. "You're protecting me, Marcus? By changing the locks on New Year's Eve? By letting me freeze?" "I was coming back for you. I swear. Marcus!" His eyes were darting around, looking for an exit or a camera. "Look, I have proof Sarah was the mastermind.
Give me a little money, just enough to get out of town, and I'll give you everything you need to put her in jail forever. We can start over, Mary, just you and me." From the shadows of the SUV's tinted windows, Hyun-woo watched. He had a suppressed pistol in his lap, his fingers tracing the cold metal. He wanted to see if Mary would falter. Mary stepped closer to Marcus, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You'd sell her out that easily? The woman you were toasting champagne with 3 nights ago?" "She's nothing to me," he hissed. "You're the one, Mary. You're the king now. I just want to be by your side." Mary leaned in as if to kiss his cheek. Marcus closed his eyes, a triumphant, greasy smile forming on his lips. "Rule number 3, Marcus," Mary whispered into his ear. "A king doesn't let a dog back into the palace just because it waggles its tail." She pulled back and signaled the guards. "Wait, Mary, what are you doing?" "Sarah is already at the police station," Mary said calmly. "I sent her a recording of this conversation 5 minutes ago via an anonymous tip. I believe she's currently giving the detectives the location of the offshore account where you hid the rest of my money." Marcus's face went white. You bitch!" He lunged for Mary, but he never made it. Hyun-woo stepped out of the car, the sheer gravity of his presence stopping Marcus mid-air. Hyun-woo didn't say a word. He simply walked up to Marcus and backhanded him with enough force to send him sprawling into the slush. "Don't ever raise your voice to my wife," Hyun-woo said, his voice like cracking ice. He turned to Mary, his eyes searching hers for any sign of regret. He found none, only a dark, satisfied fire. "The police are a block away," Hyun-woo said, taking Mary's hand. "Let's go. This place smells like trash." As they drove away, Mary watched Marcus through the rear window as the flashing blue and red lights surrounded him. She felt a weight lift, but as she looked at Hyun-woo, she realized the game was only beginning. "You did well," Hyun-woo said, not letting go of her hand. "But Sarah won't go down as easily as he did. She's already contacted my father's rivals. She's not just a thief anymore, Mary. She's a traitor." The high of seeing Marcus in handcuffs faded the moment they crossed the threshold of the penthouse. The air felt heavy, charged with a tension that had nothing to do with Mary's past and everything to do with Hyun-woo's present. "You said Sarah contacted your rivals?" Mary said, shedding her heavy coat. "How? She's a social climber, not a criminal." "Desperate people find dark corners very quickly," Hyun-woo replied, his eyes fixed on a series of security monitors in his study. "She sold them the only thing she had left, information about you. She told them you weren't a socialite or a long-lost heiress. She told them you were a delivery girl from the East Side." Mary flinched. The truth she had worked so hard to bury was now a weapon. "Does it matter? The contract." "The contract depends on the board believing I've chosen a peer, not a project," Hyun-woo interrupted, finally looking at her. "My father's rivals, the Park Syndicate, thrive on purity. If they prove you're a commoner, they can argue I'm unfit to lead, and in my world, unfit usually means dead." That night, the danger became physical. They were traveling to a private dinner with a neutral broker when the convoy was forced to stop. A heavy construction truck had stalled across the narrow bridge leading to the island district. "Reverse, now," Hyun-woo ordered into his comms. But it was too late. 2 black SUVs slammed into the rear of their motorcade. Crack! The sound of a high-caliber sniper round hitting the reinforced glass of their car echoed like a whip. Mary screamed, ducking low as the window spiderwebbed but didn't shatter. "Stay down!" Hyun-woo lunged over her, using his body as a shield. He pulled a handgun from his shoulder holster, his movements fluid and terrifyingly calm. Outside, the bridge became a war zone. Smoke grenades erupted, swallowing the bridge in a gray haze. Hyun-woo's security team engaged, the rhythmic thud-thud-thud of suppressed gunfire filling the air. "They aren't here for me," Hyun-woo hissed, checking the side mirror. "They're trying to pull you out of the car. They want to kidnap the commoner bride to humiliate the Choi name." Suddenly, the door handle rattled. A man in a tactical mask smashed a sledgehammer against the weakened glass. Mary felt a primal fear, but beneath it, something else flickered. She looked at the bridge. She knew this area. She had delivered food to these construction sites for 3 years. She knew the service maintenance tunnels ran directly under the pedestrian walkway. "Hyun-woo, the maintenance hatch!" she shouted over the noise. "It's 10 feet behind us, under the drainage grate. It leads to the subway tracks. If we stay here, they'll just blue the doors." Hyun-woo looked at her, surprised by the clarity in her voice. He didn't hesitate. "Cover us," he barked into his radio. He kicked his door open, firing 3 precise shots that dropped the man with the sledgehammer. He grabbed Mary's hand and they bolted into the smoke. The world was a blur of shouting and muzzle flashes. Mary led him with a certainty she didn't know she possessed. She spotted the rusted grate, kicked it aside with her heel, and slid into the dark, damp belly of the bridge. Hyun-woo followed, dropping the heavy grate back into place just as a hail of bullets peppered the concrete above them. Minutes later, they emerged 3 blocks away in a quiet alley, drenched in soot and shivering from the adrenaline crash. Hyun-woo leaned against a brick wall, his breath hitching as he checked his side. A graze from a bullet had torn through his expensive wool coat, staining the white shirt beneath with crimson. Mary immediately tore a strip of her silk scarf, kneeling beside him. "Hold still, you're bleeding." Hyun-woo watched her hands, steady, practiced, and efficient as she bandaged the wound. He looked at the girl he had rescued from a park bench, and for the first time, he didn't see a debt to be paid. He saw a partner. "You saved my life," Hyun-woo murmured, his voice sounding different, less like a boss and more like a man. Again. Mary looked up, her face streaked with gray soot. "I guess that makes us even for the red bean bun." Hyun-woo reached out, his thumb brushing a smudge of dirt from her cheek. The sirens were approaching, his backup finally arriving, but he didn't move. "No," he said softly. "Now I'm the one who owes you everything. And Sarah just moved from my annoyance list to my extinction list." Mary felt a cold shiver. The delivery girl was gone. In the dark of that alley, the Mafia queen had finally been born. The aftermath of the bridge attack left the penthouse feeling like a gilded bunker. Security had been tripled. The silent, black-suited men now stood at every door. But inside the master suite, the air was uncharacteristically quiet. Hyun-woo sat on the edge of a velvet chair, his shirt discarded. The bullet graze on his ribs was a jagged, angry red line. Mary stood between his knees, her hands steady as she applied a fresh antiseptic. "You should have let the medics do this," she whispered, her fingers light against his skin. "I don't like being touched by strangers," Hyun-woo replied, his voice a low vibration. He watched her intently. "And after tonight, you aren't a stranger." Mary paused, her gaze dropping to the scars on his chest and shoulders, faded white lines that told a story of a decade spent in a war she was only just beginning to understand. "Is this what your life is? Every day? Every New Year?" "It's the price of the throne," he said.
He reached up, gently catching her wrist to stop her movements. Why didn't you run? When we hit the maintenance tunnel, you could have kept going. You could have vanished into the subway and left me to the parks. Mary looked him in the eye. The fear that had defined her for weeks was being replaced by something harder, something forged in the soot of that tunnel. Because I'm tired of running, Hyun-woo. Marcus made me run. Sarah made me run. If I ran tonight, I'd be running for the rest of my life. I'd rather stand next to a monster than be chased by one. Hyun-woo's grip on her wrist didn't loosen. Instead, he pulled her a fraction closer. The Ice King persona was cracking, revealing a man who had been lonely for 12 years. You called me a monster, he murmured. Aren't you? To the world, yes. To you? He stood up, towering over her, yet his movements were slow, giving her every chance to back away. He leaned down until their foreheads touched. To you, I'm just a boy who never forgot the only person who was ever kind to him for no reason at all. He reached for a small velvet box on the side table. He didn't open it. He just held it between them. Sarah sold your secret to the Park Syndicate. They know you were a delivery girl. They're planning to use the Founders Gala tomorrow night to humiliate us both. They think they can break me by exposing you. Can they? Mary asked, her heart racing. If you let them. He finally opened the box. Inside wasn't a diamond, but a heavy, antique gold signet ring, the crest of the Choi family. This isn't for the contract. This is for the reality. If you wear this, you aren't my fake fiancé. You are my equal. You will have the power to command my men, to spend my gold, and to crush anyone who looks at you sideways. Mary looked at the ring, then at him. And if I say no? If I just want my revenge and to leave? Hyun-woo's expression softened into something almost painful. Then I will still give you your revenge. I will give you a new life in any city you choose, but I will be back on that bench next year, waiting again. The vulnerability in his voice was the final blow to Mary's defenses. She realized then that they were both outcasts, one from the bottom, one from the top, both betrayed by the people they should have been able to trust. She took the ring and slid it onto her finger. It was heavy, a golden anchor. I'm not going back to that bench, Mary said firmly. Hyun-woo didn't say a word. He leaned in and kissed her. Not a calculated move for the cameras, but a desperate, searing kiss that tasted of salt and survival. For a moment, the blood, the silk, and the syndicate didn't exist. There was only the warmth of two people who had finally found home in the middle of a storm. But as they pulled apart, Hyun-woo's eyes turned back to Flint. Tomorrow, we finish this. Sarah and the Parks think they're inviting a lamb to the slaughter. They have no idea they've just handed the knife to the queen. The grand ballroom of the Grand Imperial was a sea of white tie and champagne. This wasn't just a party, it was a coronation. The Park Syndicate had partnered with Sarah Jenkins to host this charity auction, but the real item on the block was Mary's reputation. Sarah stood at the center of a circle of socialites, draped in emerald silk. She was high on the feeling of power. She had fed the Parks everything: Mary's old address, her bank statements, even photos of her in her grease-stained delivery vest. She's a total fraud, Sarah whispered loudly, sipping her drink. The Ice King must be losing his mind to think he could pass off a street girl as royalty. Just wait for the reveal. The music shifted to a sharp, rhythmic cello. The double doors swung open. Mary and Hyun-woo didn't walk in, they commanded the air. Mary wore a gown of molten gold that clung to her like a second skin. Her hair was styled in a sharp, modern crown, and the Choi signet ring flashed on her hand. Beside her, Hyun-woo looked lethal, his hand resting possessively on her waist. "Look at her," Sarah sneered, stepping forward to intercept them. "Still playing dress-up, Mary? You can wear all the gold in the world, but you still smell like cheap exhaust and cold pizza." The room went silent. The park syndicate leaders leaned over the balcony, phones out, ready to record the downfall of the Choi heir. Mary stopped. She didn't look offended. She looked bored. "Sarah, I'm surprised you're here. I thought you'd be busy at the police station explaining why Marcus's defense attorney is blaming you for the entire embezzlement scheme." Sarah's face twitched. "Nice try, but everyone here knows the truth now. Show them, Mr. Park." A giant projector screen lowered behind the stage. Sarah expected to see the grainy photo of Mary delivering a pizza in the rain. Instead, the screen flickered to life with a high-definition bank ledger and a series of security camera clips. It was Sarah and Marcus caught in the act of accessing Mary's accounts, moving money, and throwing her belongings into a dumpster. Then the screen changed again, showing Sarah meeting with the park syndicate's rivals, handing over a folder in exchange for a thick envelope of cash. That's not what was supposed to be there," Sarah shrieked, turning to the park elders. "You were supposed to show her." "The Parks are businessmen, Sarah," Hyun-woo's voice rang out, cold and mocking. "And businessmen don't like partners who get caught, especially partners who try to sell secrets to a man who already owns the company they're standing in." Hyun-woo snapped his fingers. The lights dimmed, and the neutral broker from the bridge attack walked onto the stage. He bowed to Hyun-woo. "The park syndicate's assets were leveraged against their loyalty. When they tried to use a common thief to attack my fiancé, they violated the Underworld Treaty. As of 10 minutes ago, I have finalized the hostile takeover of every park-owned dock in the city." Sarah backed away, her heels catching on the carpet. "Mary, please. We were sisters. I only did it because I was jealous. I wanted what you had." Mary stepped closer, her shadow looming over her former best friend. "You didn't want what I had, Sarah. You wanted to take it from me. There's a difference." Mary leaned in, her voice a blade that felt like a blade. "I'm not a delivery girl anymore, but I do have one last delivery for you." Mary handed a small folded envelope to a waiting police officer who had just entered the ballroom. "Evidence of industrial espionage and grand larceny. Take her." The room watched in absolute silence as the queen of the night was dragged out in her emerald silk, screaming and kicking. Mary didn't watch her go. She turned back to the room, her eyes landing on the park elders, who were now white-faced and trembling. Hyun-woo raised his glass. "To the new year, and to my wife, who handles vipers better than I do." The crowd erupted in applause, terrified and impressed in equal measure. But as Mary looked at Hyun-woo, she saw his eyes flicker toward the exit. A guard was whispering in his ear. "What is it?" Mary asked, her heart sinking. "Marcus," Hyun-woo hissed. "He's escaped transport, and he didn't go to the docks. He went to the penthouse." The drive back to the penthouse was a blur of high-speed turns and screeching tires. The victory at the gala felt distant, replaced by a cold, sharp dread. Marcus Thorne was a coward, but a cornered rat is the most dangerous kind, especially one who feels he has nothing left to lose. "He won't get past the lobby," Hyun-woo said, his jaw tight as he loaded a fresh magazine into his sidearm. "My men are elite. He's a civilian with a stolen ego." "He knows the service codes, Hyun-woo," Mary said, her voice trembling. "When we lived together, I told him about the maintenance protocols for the high-rises I delivered to. He's not going through the lobby. He's going through the freight elevator." The moment the SUV screeched to a halt, they saw it. The glass doors of the private elevator lobby were shattered. 2 of Hyun-woo's guards lay unconscious on the floor. Marcus hadn't come alone. He had used the last of his stolen money to hire desperate street thugs from the very docks Hyun-woo just seized. "Stay with the detail," Hyun-woo ordered, but Mary was already out of the car. "He's in my home," Mary shouted. "He's stealing my peace again. I'm not waiting in the car like a prize." The penthouse was dark. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, but inside, the only light came from the flickering fireplace. "Mary, is that you, baby?" Marcus's voice came from the shadows of the kitchen. He stepped out, looking like a ghost. His suit was torn and his eyes were bloodshot. In his hand he held a heavy kitchen knife, the one Mary had used to cook for him 100 times. "It's over, Marcus," Mary said, stepping into the center of the room. Hyun-woo was flanking the other side, his gun leveled at Marcus's chest. "Sarah is gone, the money is gone. Just put the knife down." "Gone? No, it's not gone. It's right here." Marcus gestured wildly at the luxury surrounding them. "You think you're better than me now because you found a bigger shark? You're still just the girl who works for tips. You're my meal ticket." "I was never your meal ticket, Marcus," Mary said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I was your backbone, and when you broke it, I grew a new one, out of steel." Marcus laughed, a high, manic sound. "You think this guy loves you? He's a Choi. He's using you to get his inheritance. The moment that board meeting is over, he'll dump you back on that bench." "He didn't find me on a bench," Mary countered, glancing at Hyun-woo. "He found me in a memory, something you never had with me because you were too busy looking at my bank account." Marcus lunged. He didn't go for Hyun-woo. He knew he'd be shot. He went for the one thing he thought he could still control. He lunged at Mary. Bang! The gunshot echoed in the confined space, but it wasn't Hyun-woo who fired. One of the thugs Marcus had hired had panicked when he saw Hyun-woo's reinforcement team entering from the balcony. The bullet missed Hyun-woo, but it shattered the large aquarium behind Mary. Thousands of gallons of water and glass exploded inward. In the chaos, Marcus grabbed Mary, pulling her toward the balcony. The wind from the open heights whipped her hair. They were 60 stories up, the city a glittering abyss below. "If I don't get the life you stole, nobody does," Marcus screamed, his feet slipping on the wet floor. He lunged back, trying to pull her over the railing with him. Mary felt her heels leave the ground. The cold air hit her face, a terrifying reminder of that New Year's Eve bench. But this time, a hand caught her. Hyun-woo had dropped his gun and dived across the wet floor. He grabbed Mary's wrist with one hand and the balcony railing with the other. Marcus, losing his grip on Mary's silk gown, let out a final pathetic cry as his momentum carried him back. Mary closed her eyes. She felt the weight of Marcus vanish. A dull thud followed seconds later, far below, silenced by the distant sound of a New Year's firework. Hyun-woo pulled her back over the railing and onto the floor. They lay there, drenched in aquarium water, surrounded by broken glass and the silence of the night. Hyun-woo pulled her into his chest, his heart thudding against her ear. "Are you okay? Mary, look at me." Mary looked up. She saw the Ice King trembling. For the first time, he wasn't controlled. He was terrified. "I'm fine," she whispered, her voice steady. She looked at her hand. The Choi signet ring was still there, glowing in the dark. "It's finally over." "No," Hyun-woo said, kissing her forehead. "The revenge is over. Now the rest of our lives begins." The morning after the chaos, the penthouse was filled with a quiet, golden light. The shattered aquarium had been cleared, the broken glass removed, and the air smelled of fresh ozone and expensive jasmine. The city below was waking up to a new reality. The Park Syndicate had fallen, and Marcus and Sarah were names relegated to police reports and gutter tabloids. Mary stood on the balcony, wrapped in one of Hyun-woo's oversized cashmere sweaters.
The biting wind that had once felt like an enemy now just felt like a reminder that she was alive. The board of directors called, Hyun-woo said, stepping out to join her. He didn't look like a mafia boss this morning. He looked like a man who had finally put down a heavy burden. They saw the footage from the gala. They saw how you handled the parks. They aren't just approving the chairmanship. They're asking if you'll take a seat on the foundation board. Mary turned to him, a small, genuine smile touching her lips. From delivery girl to board member, I think I might be overqualified for the fiancé role. Hyun-woo walked to the railing, standing close enough that their shoulders brushed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet-lined box. It wasn't the heavy signet ring she was already wearing. It was a simple, elegant band of platinum, set with a single, flawless black diamond. "The contract is finished, Mary," he said, his voice dropping to that low, intimate rumble. "The debt is paid. The enemies are gone. You have enough in your personal account now to live anywhere in the world. You could leave today, and I would never stop you." Mary looked at the ring, then at the man who had stood over her with an umbrella when the rest of the world had turned its back. "Is that what you want? For me to leave?" "I want," Hyun-woo began, tracing her hand and tracing the silver wire ring she still wore on her other hand, "to never have to look for you again. I spent 12 years wondering if the girl from the alley was okay. I don't want to spend the next 50 wondering where she went." He slid the black diamond onto her finger, right next to the silver wire. The past and the present joined together. "No more contracts, just a promise. Stay with me, not because you owe me and not because you need protection. Stay because the Ice King is a lot less cold when you're in the room." Mary looked out at the city. She saw the streets where she had worked, the park where she had frozen, and the high-rises she had once looked at with envy. She wasn't that girl anymore. She had been through the fire and the frost, and she had come out as gold. She turned back to Hyun-woo and leaned into him, resting her head on his chest. "I'm not going anywhere, Hyun-woo. Besides, someone has to keep you from becoming a monster again." He laughed, a rare, beautiful sound, and pulled her close as the sun climbed higher over the skyline. The year had started in the dark, in the cold, and in betrayal. But as the snow began to melt from the rooftops of Oakhaven, Mary Miles realized that sometimes you have to freeze completely before you can truly learn how to burn. If you've made it this far, you know this wasn't your average New Year's resolution. This is what happens when a cold betrayal meets an even colder revenge. It's what happens when salvation comes wrapped in custom wool and gun smoke, and when the man who picks you up off the frozen pavement is the same man the rest of the world is running from. Hit that like button if Choi Hyun-woo's brand of absolute devotion made your heart race. Subscribe right now because you're clearly addicted to the kind of love that's ruthless, relentless, and a little bit lethal. Drop a comment below and tell me, whose head should roll next, or which monster's story do you want to see unfold? Because in this world, every monster deserves a muse who can handle the heat, and every queen deserves a throne, even if it's built on the wreckage of her enemies. Welcome to Silent Speaks Stories, where the happy endings always come with a body count. See you in the next shadows.